Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run.
My guest, this is Jan Lewis. Today we have from Weston, we have Henry Lukas. He is the Education Director of the Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History there in Weston, and he's from Cambridge, not Weston. Welcome, Henry.
Well, pleasure to be here.
Well, now, he brought quite a few things to show us, and I had seen the wonderful article about Henry. It was in one of the, probably the Telegram, the Sunday Telegram, and I thought this is terrific. A lot of people have forgotten the art of stamps.
Oh,
right?
yes.
How
yes,
long
I
have you
did.
been into this, Henry?
Well, I used to be an educator. I retired about 15 years ago. Always wanted to work in a museum. I collected stamps as a kid, like most people my age did. And I taught history. So it was a nice blend, because stamps and history go together.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jeff, so you started it as a kid.
Well, the usual collection that a
Did you
kid
keep
would
it?
have.
Have you kept it through the
I
years?
have a little album that I get, yes.
You got together. Well, he brought quite a few things to show us. The Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History. Now, it's in Weston. Where in Weston is it?
There's a college there called Regis College.
Yeah.
It's been around since the 20s. And it's a Catholic school, and it was taught by nuns. There aren't any nuns teaching anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But Cardinal Spellman, who was
Yep.
from Massachusetts, and then he went to be the Archbishop in New York City, gave his collection to the nuns and the teaching order at Regis, Sisters
I
of
didn't
St.
know
Joseph.
he collected stamps.
Oh, he was a big collector. He was picked Stamp Collector of the Year back in the 50s.
I noticed when you go into the post office, they'll have. Do they sometimes feature a stamp of the month or a stamp of the year?
Well, the post office issues this. When I was a kid, there were maybe 15 stamps issued all year.
Yeah.
It made it easy to collect. Now they're putting out stamps 2 a month, 3 a month sometimes. So it gets a little expensive, and there's a lot of them. And some people like the looks of them, others are not so popular.
Yeah.
But the Cardinal gave his collection to the nuns, and then by 1960 he had given them enough that it made sense to start a museum.
And so the
he-
museum was open in 1960?
Well, he chartered it in 1960, and then on his birthday, May 4th, 1963, had about 1,000 people, had the Postmaster General, and they opened the museum. And so we've been operating ever since.
So if people wanted to visit, is there a day and times that it's open?
We're open Thursday through Sunday,
Yeah.
noon to 5.
Sunday, that's great.
Except, well, in July and August we are closed.
Yeah, right.
But we can take any group. We get a lot of senior citizen groups that come visit. We like to have school groups, and that can be done any day of the week.
Sure, that
So
sounds really
all
great.
that information is on the website.
How long have you been there?
I started 14 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they probably, what your title is the Director of the Education there, so would people contact you to get to maybe have a tour, schedule a tour?
Oh yeah, it's a small enough museum, and I've always found going to a museum, if you have somebody who can show you around and point out a lot of things.
A
So-
docent, yeah.
Yeah, so we pretty much, every visitor who comes gets a kind of a personal tour explaining, and we find out what their interests are. We rotate our exhibits.
Yeah.
So right now we have, this is the 100th anniversary of United States airmail. In May of 1918, the first planes flew from Washington to Philadelphia to New York, and so this is the 100th anniversary. So.
Oh, no. You know, it didn't even dawn on me, Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History. Henry brings up Cardinal Spellman. I don't know why it didn't even dawn on me that Cardinal Spellman would have been.
This was his. We've taken the name Cardinal off.
Yeah.
We used to be called the Cardinal Spellman Philatelic Museum, and a lot of people don't know what the word philatelic means.
The stamps.
So they changed it to stamps.
Yeah.
And we actually, our slogan is, you don't have to be a stamp collector to enjoy the museum. In fact, most of the people who come are not serious stamp collectors. They're people who know about stamps, or some people who still write letters. And
Who designs these things? They're gorgeous. Some of them are just beautiful.
the post office decides. They have a big committee that meets 4 times a year.
Yeah.
They get about 30,000, believe it or not, suggestions for stamps from all different organizations. They narrow it down. It takes about 2.5 years for a stamp to go from picking it to designing it.
What,
They have to
2.5?
find an artist. They don't. A lot of people think a lot of people compete for stamp designs. No,
They don't.
there are certain. Interestingly, just the other day, Robert Indiana. Do you know that name? The artist. You know the big statue that says "Love."
Yes.
He just died.
He did that. He died.
He died, and I saw in his obituary that They paid him $1,000.
That's it?
That was all he got.
How long ago was this?
Well, no, this was 1985 or 6, but they made 330 million of them. So if you're an artist, my son happens to be an artist.
Yeah.
If he could send out his artwork
Yeah.
to 330 million envelopes,
Yeah.
that's quite an honor. So
Oh, definitely, definitely. We
Yeah.
are talking with Henry Lukas, and he is the Director of Education at the Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History over in Weston. And you brought some really great things to show us.
People are always surprised when they come to the museum. They think stamps have been around forever.
Yeah.
They always think of the Stamp Act from the Revolution. Those weren't paper stamps. Those were like wax stamps. So the first stamp, and I can show this to the camera, was from England. Just a tiny piece of paper.
So they were well ahead of us on this.
Well, it turns out in all countries, people who sent letters didn't pay. The person getting the letter had to pay.
That's
okay?
weird. I don't know if I would appreciate that.
If you would have communicated me back then, say to be on the
Yeah.
whatever local show they had back then,
Uh-huh.
I would have gotten a letter from you and paid the mailman. It would have been expensive. So it wasn't a very good system.
No.
People,
No.
if I didn't know I was getting a letter, I might not go to the post office.
Yeah.
People cheated a little bit. They put secret codes on the envelopes and stuff. So in 1840,
Yeah.
a man named Mr. Hill said, I have a better idea. Little piece of paper, put the glue on the back, sell it real cheap, 1 penny, and that was the birth of the stamp. And I don't know if we can...
Can we zero in
I
on
don't know
this?
if
See if you hold it right up.
Can you get...
Hold it up.
It's a tiny little piece of paper. I'm going to quiz you.
Okay.
Who was the Queen of England back in 1840?
Oh God, I don't know. Victoria, was it for Victoria?
Queen Victoria.
Uh-huh.
Is that good, sir?
I-
Sorry, I don't have a big one.
on this.
Well, it is small.
If you got it, Paul, did you get a good chance on that?
I-
That's the
I got a
first
good
stamp.
close-up.
That was the very
Okay.
first for here in the States or Joe?
No,
sorry,
for in England. England
yeah.
started the postal system.
Yeah.
We decided it was a big success
Yeah.
because for cheapness,
No,
for cheapness, you could send it anywhere you wanted to
Yeah.
in Scotland, Ireland, only a penny. So it kind of caught on real quick.
Yeah.
Daniel Webster introduced a motion in the U.S. Congress
Yeah.
to start stamps, but just like today, it takes Congress a little while to
Yeah.
get something done. So
Yeah.
we didn't get our first stamps till 1847.
Yeah.
I'll quiz you again.
Yeah.
Who were the first? We had 2 first stamps. Who do you think we would have put on there? Go ahead, take a guess.
Well, if it started in 1847,
Yeah.
was that? This is bad. Time of the Civil War. Or was that over?
Well, think a little more of our history. Who would make sense to put on our? Who would
The
we
first
honor most?
president.
George Washington.
There you go.
And another person who wasn't a president, but he was our first postmaster general. That was Ben Franklin. So Ben Franklin and George, we charged a little more. We charged 5 cents and 10 cents. And for the first few years, you did pay by the distance.
And stamps now are what? 40? What is it? 47?
Well, we have forever stamps.
Yeah.
So there's no value on the stamps. It just says forever. 50 cents. If you go to your Upton post office, 50 cents, they'll give you a forever stamp. And it's good forever. If you...
Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, but you're going to use it.
Well, some people think they might be saving money if they do a lot of mailing.
I didn't know
you can
this.
save
So
a
you can
penny
get
or
a
2
50-cent stamp now. You know. Oh, wait a minute. That is more than the. Yeah, but that's.
Well, it started out, as I said, 5 and 10, then it dropped down to 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The only time, well, actually twice. Once during World War I, to make money for the war, they upped the price and then they dropped it. And then just, people might remember, year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was only 47 cents.
Yeah.
And dropped from 49 to 40. But anyway, it's 50 cents. Easy to do.
Well,
Airmail's $1.20. So.
What else have you got for us?
Well, let me ask you this. I guess you'll have a clue here. Who do you think was the most famous, most popular stamp ever made? More people bought this stamp than anybody.
Princess Diana?
Well, she wouldn't be on an American stamp. I'm talking about an American stamp. A musician, famous musician.
Elvis.
Yeah, the cameraman knows.
Are you
correct.
kidding?
All right, I did get a big
Are
Elvis
you
one.
serious? Oh my God! He was,
500 million, almost $500 million.
that was the most popular.
More people bought this stamp than any other stamp ever sold.
When did it come out, though?
This was in early 90s, I believe. The post office has some interesting rules.
Yeah.
Number 1, you have to be dead to be on a stamp.
Oh, I
Okay.
didn't know that.
in an American stamp. The Queen of England was obviously
Well, you
alive
wait a
in
minute,
that
but you
stamp.
said George Washington, was he deceased when he went on the
In
stamp?
1847 he was, yeah.
You have to be deceased to be on an
An
American
American
stamp.
They're trying to change that rule, but right now,
Why?
well, part of it's political.
Yeah.
In this day and age, somebody's going to complain about a living person on a stamp.
Yeah.
We also want to make sure that they're still famous 5 or 10 years from now.
Well, that's a good idea.
So it used to be you had to be dead. In fact, when the Elvis stamp came out, he had been dead 10 years. Now it's 5 years, and now they've even lessened it to that. So
Well, he passed away on my birth, August 16th.
did he?
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay,
that's
well.
that's kind of a.
So he did leave the building. Right?
he did leave the building.
Right. Other interesting thing was that the post office wanted to make. They knew the stamp would be popular, but they weren't quite sure which picture of Elvis to use. So some of your viewers may remember going to the post office and getting this postcard.
I don't know if we can get this one or
And
not.
this is maybe too
A
small.
little postcard. That came out in the 90s also?
Well, you had two choices. You had an A choice and a B choice.
Mhm.
The young Elvis or the older
Yeah.
Las Vegas Elvis.
Yeah.
So about 1 million people voted, and of course the young Elvis won.
He got it.
So,
I got it.
but this was one of the few times that the post office has asked for an opinion. They did issue a bunch of Star Wars stamps,
Oh, yeah.
and there were 15 characters from Star Wars, and Yoda was the most popular one.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
But the other interesting thing is a lot of countries produce stamps for collectors, not so much for mailing. And this is a book that features
What's that one called? Elvis in the Post?
Elvis in the Post, and there are at least 35 countries around the world who have put Elvis on a stamp. So he's quite popular.
That's- Hey, before we go any further,
Sure.
Henry, how do people get a hold of you over there?
Well, we have a website, spellmanmuseum.org. We have an email, info@spellman.org. Those are probably, you can always send us a letter.
Yeah? Or an email. Yeah.
Oh, no, we do email.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're easy to get a hold of, and we're happy to. We do have our webpage is updated every day with several stamps featuring an event of the day that is honored on a stamp. And I'm trying to think.
What time? Do you have to make an appointment to come in just for a tour, or can you just come on?
No, we're open. You do have to make an appointment if you have a stamp collection and you want us to give you an idea if it's worth something or not.
That's a great idea. If you
Okay.
have a stamp collection out there and you really want to know, gee, what's this worth? You can help them, right?
If it's sitting in the closet, we get a lot of grandpa stamps. We get a lot of people who are downsizing,
Yeah.
and they don't want to stamp. They don't want to throw them away.
No.
So you can bring them in. We give you go through your whole collection, give you a little history of the stamps. Because stamp collecting hobby has kind of decreased,
Yeah.
there are a lot of stamps that you really can't sell.
Why is it that the interest has gone down, do you think? People
Well-
are more emailing than mailing?
Well, email certainly. When I was a kid, we got mail at Christmas time twice a day, and
Yeah.
you'd always and many people send more letters. So email is one reason. Kids are doing other things, as everybody says, on the computer. It's expensive for children to collect. Most people might remember a stamp store in their town. I don't know if Upton had one. Those have all closed, and now you do everything on eBay
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. One of my jobs is to get kids interested in stamp collecting.
Definitely.
We do still have a Boy Scout. If you have a Boy Scout troop in
Oh,
Upton,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
we'd be happy to we do a 4-hour merit badge program for the Boy Scouts.
How about the Girl Scouts?
And we do the Girl Scouts too. The Brownies get a fun badge.
They get them.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember being a brownie and a Girl Scout.
Oh, yeah.
This would have been really interesting.
One funny thing about the kids, because kids send so few letters, when a child arrives or when a school group arrives, they have to send themselves a postcard.
Mhm.
And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, they'll get it at home and remember they visited the museum. Two, most kids, right up until 6th or 7th grade, don't know how to address an envelope or a postcard.
No.
And the funny thing is, we give them an old stamp, like a 10-cent stamp,
Sure.
and they all try to peel the back off.
Good luck.
So if you came and watched, I would hand out, let's say 25 postcards,
Yeah.
give them an old stamp, and they'd be trying to press it down or trying to peel the back. And we say, no, you have to lick it. So
Show
that's
us
the
some more of
difference.
your things, Henry.
All right, well-
So we can see.
Okay, somehow, every now and then the post office gets embarrassed, and they put the wrong person on the stamp.
How could, that hasn't died yet? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
in this case, again, we might have too much glare, but there's a African American. His name is Bill Pickett. He was a famous rodeo star, and so this is a sheet of stamps featuring famous people from the Old West: Annie Oakley, Buffalo Bill, Sacagawea. Wyatt Earp, and so they put him on the stamp.
Yeah.
Because he was dead.
Yeah.
They went to the stamp ceremony, supposedly, and the family, the grandchildren, said, "That's not Grandpa Bill, that's Grandpa Bob, his brother."
Oh.
So the post office got very embarrassed,
Yeah.
and they said, "Well, we can't sell the stamp."
Right.
But some of them got sold accidentally. And like anything else, since there are only a few of those sheets, the value went way up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So what the post office did, because they don't like to make people rich like that, they printed up a lot of the wrong sheet too, and you could buy one, and that sells for about $200. This one is about $35.
It's pretty.
But probably what your viewers most remember, if these are the stamp, most people when they come in, if they know about stamps, they ask for this
What is that?
upside down plane. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't know. When was this? When did that
Well,
come?
this was issued 100 years ago.
Oh,
As I
okay.
said, it's the anniversary of airmail.
Yeah.
And for some reason, one sheet, and one sheet only, got printed with the plane upside down.
It was that very valuable, though, right?
Well, the man bought it for $24.
Mm-hmm.
He was a stamp collector. The post office tried to take it back from him. They actually sent postal inspectors to his house, knocked on the door.
The guy didn't give it back.
And he said, "No, I bought it. It's mine."
Yeah.
And so he called around to a lot of stamp collectors,
Yeah.
and he sold it for about $1,000 in a couple of weeks. So from $24 to $1,000.
Yeah.
Then that was sold again, and then the next person who bought it, you might say, got greedy, and he took the whole sheet and separated them into 100 stamps, which could each be sold separately. And so there was an auction down in New York City a little while ago, and it sold for about $800,000.
Just 800,000.
Just 800,000.
Oh,
And probably with inflation and interest, it may sell for $1 million. So there's one of them missing, and this is a little advertisement
amazing.
that's offering $100,000 if anybody finds that last one, because they happen to number each one on the back, so they know exactly. And there have been some phonies, but
That's it?
this is not the most expensive stamp. The most expensive stamp sold for about $10 million. It's one of a kind. There are 100 of these.
Henry, what's a bicycle stand? Now, I remember.
Well, I brought this along. A couple of reasons.
When
One,
did those come out?
well, this is a whole book of bicycle stamps. Stamp collectors, some stamp collectors collect countries. Some stamp collectors collect all sorts of things, cancellations, different types of envelopes. But a lot of them pick a topic, and so bicycles are very popular.
Yeah.
So this is a book that just goes through. And every year we have a bicycle group from the area, the Charles River Bikers, I think they're called. They come and meet at the museum, go out for their 20, 30-mile ride, and then come back. We put up an exhibit of bicycle on stamps.
Yeah.
And this month, if you ride your bike to the museum during when we're open, we'll let you in for free.
Oh, okay.
Weston's
So, well,
a beautiful town to ride.
from
Might be
here-
a little far from
Well, I
Upton.
don't know. Look at
Well,
the people who.
it's not more than 20 miles. So.
We have a neighbor who used to ride his bike from Upton to work in Boston. every
Well,
day.
tell him to ride his bike to the
Hey.
museum. So, let me tell you a little funny story. And again, I'm sorry this is glary. Well, we can take this one out and make it a little easier. You recognize this mailbox? Where?
No, what is that? Can you hold that? What- it looks like a Christmas decoration.
Well, this is a mailbox from England.
Oh.
England, as I said, was the first country to have stamps. But we have a museum member who had a costume made of the envelope of the mailbox, and she went over to England, and she stood next to the real mailbox,
Yeah.
and a nice elderly lady came by with a letter to
Oh
mail,
no.
and a friend yelled out, "Use me, use me!" And so the woman, as you can see from the picture, dropped the.
But she's smiling. She knows the difference. She knew.
But she did walk away. So it reminded me. I'm sure your viewers remember.
Wouldn't that be against the law, though, in the United States? I mean, gosh, you get letters. You can't tamper with the U.S. mail.
Well,
you know.
I never thought of that, but that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But you might remember the old Candid Camera show.
Oh, love! My parents loved that.
Well, there's a couple of mailbox routines. You can find them on YouTube, and that's
Talking mailboxes.
talking mailbox.
Yeah.
You put the letter in, they throw it back out. There's one on YouTube I saw where a hand comes out and grabs your letter.
I love
So you can have fun with the mailboxes and.
You were telling me recently you were in Philadelphia for a big gathering. Was it? Yeah.
Well, a new stamp came out in the March 23rd for the very famous Mr. Rogers.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
so Pittsburgh, he's a hero
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh, and we had about 300 people in the post office. They had the postmaster general was there, and Stamp collectors come because they like to get what they call a first day cover.
But I haven't seen his stamp.
Well, it's actually, unfortunately, this is another problem with stamp collecting. A lot of stamps, they don't print many. They maybe print 20 million.
Why?
Well, because people aren't buying stamps. So it doesn't make sense to print 300 million of. I think they could have probably printed more because I've been to a lot of post offices and everybody is out. You can still buy it through the mail.
Yeah.
But that was an example of a first day ceremony. There's a new stamp that came out for STEM, familiar? The new education, science,
Yeah,
technology,
science, yeah.
featuring that. Actually, I think next month they're going to have a series of stamps that if you scratch them, they'll have a little smell to them.
Oh, the scratch and sniff?
Scratch and
Oh, no.
This may be, I think, the first American stamp. But a lot of countries, Brazil has had a coffee smelling stamp, and Switzerland had a chocolate smelling stamp.
I'll go for the chocolate.
So they people, and there are other. We don't do it as much in this country, but other countries use all different types of materials to make stamps.
We're talking again with Henry Lukas, and he is the Education Director of the Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History in Weston. Henry, again, before we close, how
Sure.
can people reach you?
The best way is our email, info@spellman.org.
Show us a couple more things at the...
Well,
this is right here.
This is an interesting story. Well, it wasn't until 1913 that the post office started delivering packages.
Yeah.
Before that, it was all private delivery. So in 1913, they introduced parcel post.
Oh,
And this is based on a true story of a little girl who wanted to go visit her grandmother
yeah.
in Idaho, and her father couldn't afford a train ticket.
Oh.
So she had heard about parcel post, and she said, well, maybe I can mail myself. So they went down to the train station, the post office, and he looked through the rule book, and it didn't say little girls weren't allowed. So he weighed her, figured out how much postage would be, and stuck a few stamps on her, and train came in, put her on the...
This isn't true, is it?
Oh, it's a true story, yeah.
Well, let me see that. Why have I never heard of... When did this book come out?
Oh, it's been out a while, but
Mailing
they
May.
did change the rules.
Mailing May by Michael O'Tunnell.
Right. They changed the rules. But people are surprised. That maybe some people do it here in Upton. You can send baby chicks through the mail.
I've heard them in the post office.
Right. You can send bees through the mail.
What a cute...
Crickets and stuff. So
Mailing May.
Yeah, it's a good little book. It's a good
What a
one
cute
for the kids.
book.
Yeah. So and there's actually a man in England who does it. Something else your older viewers might remember is these old airmail envelopes.
What's that?
Well, airmail used to cost more money.
Yeah.
And you pay by the weight.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense to put your letter in an envelope because you're paying for the weight of the envelope,
Right.
and there's nothing on it except the address. So they had these aerograms, they called them. They had postage on them. You would write your letter inside, fold it up, glue the edges, and so it's
I had a
all
friend.
in one.
I took many classes of French back in high school, and we all had to have pen pals in France.
Oh, yes, okay.
And it always came that, what did you call it again? What you just showed
Aerograms?
me?
Yeah.
It always came as an aerogram.
You have time for one more?
Yeah.
This is what's considered the most secret, top secret stamp. This is the John Glenn stamp. Now, viewers might remember he was the first American to go around the Earth, and so they wanted to have a stamp to celebrate that. But they weren't sure he was going to make it back.
Right.
I hope viewers have seen the movie Hidden Figures.
Yep.
John Glenn's character is in that. Anyway, they printed up this stamp with his capsule, the Mercury capsule, sent it out to the post offices labeled top secret, do not open. And John Glenn went up, I think this was in May, came back and safely. And so once he landed and they brought him to the rescue ship, they called up the post office and
They
said,
canceled it.
no, you could sell the stamp now. If he had not made it, if he had died,
But that was the whole idea. You had to be deceased to have a stamp, right?
well, but they, it wasn't quite, they didn't have his picture on the stamp. Right, this is his
Okay,
capsule.
all right, yeah.
So they didn't want to issue something for a man who just died. I mean,
Yeah.
would have been bad. So it's considered the most secret stamp ever made for the United States. So
Henry,
so,
I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, great.
And the address again in Weston?
it's on Regis College in Weston, and the email is info@spellman.org, or just Google Spellman Museum of Stamps, and we'd be happy to have you come out with your collection. We'll give you a tour. If you have a group, you have a school group, Scouts, Girl Scouts.
What's the street
Anything.
address over there?
241 Wellesley Street
And that's at Regis College.
at Regis College.
Is it in the library?
No, we have our own separate building.
You have your own building
The
there.
Cardinal did raise enough money to build a...
He was a busy
stamp
guy.
bank. Oh, he was very influential at that
I
time.
didn't realize he was into stamp collecting. Would never even dawned on me.
Oh, yeah, no, he people knew who he was, yes. Indeed.
Thank you, Henry, for being with us.
Well, thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.